Welcome to the Spectators Podcast. Here are your hosts, Corey and Jeff.
Welcome, spectators, to episode 25 of the Spectators Podcast. My name is Jeff, and to my mic adjacent is Corey. How are you, Corey?
I am good. It's been a little bit of time between episodes because we've been so busy, but that's not a bad thing. It's only going to pick up busyness from here, but it's good to get together again. It's hasn't been the busiest week of sports necessarily either. There hasn't been a whole lot going on, a little bit here, a little bit there. But how are you? How are things going?
Good. As you know, I've had some family injuries, so I'm dealing with toddlers and teeth. But it is another big age milestone for our podcast. The podcast did turn 25, so the podcast can now rent a car.
Oh, 25 is the age to rent a car.
Yes.
Eh? Okay. Well, now it is legal to rent a car and travel on its own.
Exactly. So now it can go to the U.S. It's been able to drink for 4 years now, or four episodes. It's been able to drink on its own, and now it can get a rental car and go even further.
How do you feel about our overall parenting job of the podcast? Do you think it's ready to go to the U.S. and drink some tequila?
I don't know. And it's been off its rocker lately, so I don't know. Maybe we should reevaluate our parenting skills. Oh my goodness! But we did actually. So we discussed, and your hat is a good indication that we did want to do a bit of a different episode of the Spectators Podcast. We mentioned it before that you and I are interested in things other than WWE and NHL and MLB. So we did actually want to talk about other stuff other than that. So we'll dive into some different topics today. We did want to remind folks to please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and or Apple Podcasts, and leave some reviews, star or written variety on the audio side, and then written on the YouTube side. But we wanted to talk about Marvel and video games today. So what do you feel like? Your hat and shirt are saying video games, but what would you like to talk about first?
We can certainly dive into a little Marvel first. I think that I have binge watched enough Marvel over the last couple of weeks that I'm finally starting to catch up with the rhythm of things, which is cool. And it's been a whirlwind. Like I find it funny because it's a different perspective I probably have than maybe you, because you probably watched them when they came out and in the progression that they were released, whereas I just kind of binged everything at once, and I'm still a few shows behind, but I'm getting there.
I much prefer to be in your position because every freaking week I'm waiting, and actually this Thursday, speaking of Marvel, is the release of She-Hulk.
Right. Yes.
So
18th,
I will
right?
be, yeah. So I will be anxiously awaiting each week to see it, because Bruce Banner's in it. So I think he's Smart Hulk still. So that'll be interesting to see. And again, just another new character that they're introducing on this exciting trajectory that Marvel seems to be heading down. But I did want to ask you, now that you've gotten a bit more of a sense of Phase 4, because last time we chatted about it, you haven't really seen a lot of the big ones. What are your feelings on Phase 4?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how much I really like Mark Ruffalo's interpretation of Hulk, and especially his Smart Hulk, like you said. I love when he's in the Hulk form, but he's not like all crush, smash Hulk smash, and he wears the glasses and has a very coherent conversation. I find it very humorous, and I like that Marvel Studios really put a different twist on it. We hadn't seen this with previous Hulk, so it is nice to see, but. Overall, I mean, it's been a whirlwind for me because I've just watched so much at once. But if I can give you kind of my take on things, I just finished watching Loki, and Loki was one of those shows that at first I wasn't sure, the first little bit of the first episode, But even in the first episode, like, it picked up so much that it got really interesting. I really liked the storyline. It was probably one of my favorite so far shows that I've watched. And I mean, the movies have all been good. Like, Shang-Chi had great moments to it. Honestly, it was a great movie. I really enjoyed the multiverse, the whole multiverse situation. I really liked Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and I really liked the point where you got to see a little bit of everything when he comes up and he's going to see the Illuminati. I think that's what they call the Illuminati or whatever. And then they got like Xavier there, and I can never remember. Is it Reed Richards? Yeah. And they're all kind of there. I really like seeing that universe and seeing like different ideas come across, and it's really cool to see, what Disney and what Marvel are doing to we talked a little bit about this personally last week about how they kind of move away from the comic books, but it's not a bad thing at times, because you do have a little bit of interpretation coming from writers and cinematographers who are not into the writing, but they can put something on screen that's gives a new twist to everything, and I really like that.
Yeah.
I will finally I don't know why I waited this long. I don't know if you know, but Spider-Man is one of my favorite superhero characters of all time. So, just the amount of time that I've waited to watch this is surprising. But I did watch No Way Home, and unfortunately I was spoiled because, there was so much stuff on the internet, and I knew what was going to happen, but there were still moments in it that did surprise me a little bit, and it was very hyped up. But it delivered. Like, it was a very good movie. There were great parts to it. I love how they brought back two of my personal favorites, which was Doc Ock and Green Goblin. I think not only are those two of my favorite villains from Spider-Man, those are certainly two great actors who played such a good job.
Willem Dafoe, for sure.
Amazing job. And I can't remember the guy's name who plays Dr. Octavius.
Neither do I.
But he did such a great job in Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire. And I thought he did just as good of a job in this movie as well. Here's a question for you. Now we've seen all these Spider-Man. We've seen the trilogy, except Andrew Garfield didn't get his trilogy. But we've seen the trilogy for all three of them. Who's your favorite Spider-Man going through all the situation? Like, who played him the best?
So interesting you asked that question, because I did not like Spider-Man 3 from Tobey Maguire's era. Like, and it really soured that trilogy for me, just because I felt like the casting wasn't very good. Like they chose he becomes Spider-Man, symbiote Spider-Man, and he walks around the street with the emo look, and it just really put a bad taste in my mouth for that series. So I really had a bad taste. But then when Maguire came back for No Way Home, and I saw him again, I was like, oh my god, like, he really was a good Spider-Man. I actually ended up going back and watching the first one with him and Willem Dafoe, and I was like, wow, like, this really was it. And I actually remember watching it in theater, right? So I think for me, I haven't seen the Andrew Garfield series.
Oh, you haven't, eh? Okay.
I haven't, but even just like seeing him in No Way Home, I do. For me, I think Tom Holland's the best out of the three. But like, Maguire's like a close second for me, and like Garfield's a third. And I guess I can't fully speak to it because I haven't seen 1 and 2. And I think he did a fantastic job. Like, he was really good in No Way Home with the other two Spider-Men. I thought it was really interesting too, and folks have pointed out that in No Way Home, the Spider-Mans from different universes were different actors, where in Multiverse with Doctor Strange, it's Benedict Cumberbatch for all the different universes they go through. So I thought, like, well, that's kind of strange.
That's kind of fun. Well, it is Doctor Strange after all.
True. It's true, yeah. He's so egotistical, he can never have a different person play him.
He can't. I thought that was hilarious. And for me, I gotta go a little on a different route here. I've always felt like Tobey Maguire was my guy. I felt like those movies bring so much nostalgia for me personally. And like, I feel like you can go back and watch those movies now, and they're still great. Like, they did such a good job for what it was at the time. Like, the CGI and just the acting and everything. The casting was
That's
really
a good point.
Like, apart from the third movie, the casting was really
Yeah.
good. Like, I thought Kirsten Dunst was a very good Mary Jane. James Franco played a very good Harry Osborn. The villains were all chosen well. We won't talk about Topher Grace. I don't think he was the right casting for Venom. I just look at it like this way. I don't know if you remember the very 90s, 1994, I think, Spider-Man that came out. Venom to me was like that big guy. Like he was a big giant character, bully kind of almost. And
Eddie Brock,
I didn't see Eddie Brock in Topher Grace. I didn't see him even as the Venom character when he had the suit on. He just wasn't large. He was like about the same size as Spider-Man, and I just didn't see that depiction of the comic books or the 94 series. And honestly, yeah, I mean, it was hard to watch that movie. I thought there were humorous parts with, you know, Tobey Maguire kind of playing the way he did with the symbiote suit, but with the symbiote suit on and him playing like Dark Spider-Man, he did an okay job there. It was just the external when he didn't have the suit on kind of emo. Like, I don't know why they went that route. But other than that, I still think that if you really look back, like, those movies were so good at their time that they still hold it together now. On the other hand, you know, Andrew Garfield, I can't say the same thing. I didn't feel like those movies were as good. I've seen them as well, both of them, and you know, I was really excited when I found out that Dr. Connors and the Lizard Man was in the movies in the second series, I should say, and I still think they messed that up too. I didn't like the way that they made him look. I didn't really like the way that Electro looked either. They did a lot better job in No Way Home. The way he looked, like he was actually kind of in more his style costume. He played better, but in the movies, I don't know. I didn't feel like he was dressed the part or looked the part that well. But Andrew Garfield too. Like he was kind of a smart dude, but like he was a skateboarder and he was kind of cool and he had I don't know, like I look at Peter Parker and that's not Peter Parker to me, and when I was talking to my partner about it, I think the consensus that we can kind of agree on everything is like Tom Holland probably played the best like Spider-Man and Tobey Maguire played the best Peter Parker. Like that's how I look at it, because he just played such a good like depiction of that nerdy, not a lot of friends, but really, really intelligent kind of character. I didn't get that vibe with Andrew Garfield, and I got some of it with Tom Holland. But you know, definitely, Tom Holland did such a good job. I can't discount what he did on screen. I felt like he came into it at a very lucky time because, you know, with Marvel and Disney kind of collaborating together, he had the opportunity to shine in different worlds. Like he was in Captain America, he was in Avengers.
Yeah.
I wonder what things would have been like if Tobey Maguire had other opportunities. I think he would have done a great job. You know, there was supposed to be a Spider-Man 4, but they canceled. They
really?
So Sam Raimi, or however you pronounce his name, the director, he was the one who did the first series, and there was a script and everything was done for Spider-Man 4 for Tobey Maguire, but they ended up scrapping it. Yeah, I think it's just the third one didn't do as well, so they ended up scrapping that project, which kind of sucks.
Yeah. I mean, it was so like that was that scene where they're all sitting waiting for the bad guys to come, and they're like, well, they're talking about like all the worst enemies they fought, and then Tom Holland goes like, well, I fought an alien in space. They're like, oh wow, like and they're talking about, especially that scene where they're asking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man about how he has the webbing in his body.
Yeah.
This was versus like them having this shooter. That was so good.
Did you notice something funny there too when Tom Holland's like, I fought an alien in space, right? And then Tobey Maguire was like, I fought an alien too. And then Andrew Garfield's like, I didn't fight an alien. Like he kind of got shafted. Honestly, it was funny because like he didn't really get the best of villains in his go, and like it was a different storyline because, you know, there's usually two universes of Spider-Man where and sorry everyone for talking about Spider-Man for so long, but there were definitely two areas of Spider-Man where you really think of Mary Jane is one that really sticks with me, and it's again because the show in 1984, but also like the comic books. But there is also a whole realm where it's all about Gwen Stacy and his relationship with Gwen Stacy. So we got to see that in Andrew Garfield's depiction. But do you know this fun fact about Gwen Stacy? Do you know the whole history behind her?
I know that she, in an alternate universe, she's the one that gets bitten by the spider.
Oh, okay. No. So the reason why her character was created is I think it's something along the lines of Stan Lee. I think maybe his wife's name was Gwen, but she her whole depiction, like her blonde hair, her bangs, like the way she looks and being intelligent, is actually based off his wife. I think it's
Oh, interesting.
yeah, something like that. So he actually created the character based on like his own knowledge of someone he's in love with, right? So that's why there's like a specific love interest in her. So yeah, something kind of cool. But yes, she does get bitten by a spider and Spider Gwen, and yeah, we saw a little bit of that in the
Into Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah. There you go.
Which I think the second one's coming out in October. Actually, excitingly
So
enough.
excited about that.
Yeah.
I thought that was one of just the best overall like storylines of a Spider-Man. It was really cool. So I'm really excited.
Well, it's funny because like when we were talking about it, it's like, have you seen Into the Spider-Verse? And I think I saw it, and I saw like the Spider, John Mulaney's character, Spider Pig, and I'm like, oh, this looks stupid. But then you're like, no, dude, it's really good. And like, do you like comics? I was like, yes. So then you like go watch it, and then I had the same thought of that when you said like when you haven't seen No Way Home. Like, I can't believe it took me this long to watch Into the Spider-Verse.
It's so good. Like we saw it in theaters on its release, and like we didn't really go into it with a ton of hype or expectation, but just like the animation style, the whole layout of the story, and just the storyline and plot on its own, like, were really, really good. And you also get to see like Miles Morales, where you get to see his world, and we do have the Spider-Man game on PS4, and then they also released Miles Morales on PS4 and PS5, so you get a really whole feeling of Miles Morales, the Prowler, and all those kind of characters in there. It's a whole nother universe, right? Like Miles Morales. Sorry, I shouldn't say universe. He is in New York. He is he actually does know Peter Parker, but it is a whole nother like storyline of Spider-Man. I hope we see Miles Morales on the big screen at some point. I know there's been talks about it, but again, it's another whole casting, and it's a lot of development.
Well, it is too, and like we're jumping topics, but it looks like moving forward that we're not really going to see Spider-Man probably up until Avengers or some sort of bigger collaboration movie, right? Because there hasn't been a specific movie announced in the next two phases, which is 5 and 6, because Phase 4 ends after Wakanda Forever, and then the next two phases, there's been no announcements of him, so I imagine he'll be in Avengers. And I've seen things that where Tom Holland signed on for the trilogy, which is supposed to be after that. But then I've seen things he hasn't. I know he's taking a bit of a break from acting, which is fair. I mean, making that many Marvel movies is exhausting.
Yeah, playing the same character over and over, I can only imagine, is exhausting.
I mean, like, look at Robert Downey Jr., right? Like, he's basically said, like, and for the most part, I think Chris Evans, too. Like, they both said, like, as much as I really I like the idea, I don't, like, I think there's, especially, like, someone like Robert Downey Jr., like, I think Iron Man is very close to, like, Iron Man, Tony Stark is a character very close to his personal life, and, like, this, like,
it's almost synonymous with who he is, yeah.
And I think that's why he played Iron Man so well, and, like, Kevin Feige had to like beg Disney to keep him because of course of his past, of course, right? He's like, you really got to give this guy a chance, because if you let him do it, like, he's going to be amazing. And I'm glad they listened to him, because I think they cast him perfectly. And good on Robert for taking that opportunity and going with it. And they cast Chris Evans really well, but
I've heard that's why I think they may do. Speaking of Robert Downey Jr., I did hear that they may do like cameo and small pieces of him in certain movies where like
it would make sense. Yeah.
So
I see the same thing. So obviously we have Captain America 4 coming up,
Yeah.
So I can see maybe some flashbacks where you see Evans come back, and they show like a history between him and I don't remember the name of Falcon. I can't remember the character's name.
I don't remember
It's
his
off the
name
top of
either.
my head. But anyways, but it's Sam something.
Sam something, yeah.
Um, anyways, and then I think because they're going to introduce Ironheart, who will be the next Iron
And
Man.
that's supposed to be a show, right?
But obviously, I think like what we're seeing is obviously a build up to the Avengers in
Yeah.
Phase 6.
Yeah.
It's all going to be these brand new, specifically younger, because you have America Chavez, who showed up in Multiverse. You have Kate Bishop, who's replacing Hawkeye, who's in Hawkeye. I'm missing Ms. Marvel, of course. I think
She-Hulk.
She-Hulk, and then you have Carol Danvers, who's I think going to be sticking around, and then oh, I can't remember the name of the other character from WandaVision, the other cosmic character. Her name is escaping me right now. Then so there's been a lot of introductions of new characters. So
Yeah.
Ironheart's going to be one of those new folks. Then we have She-Hulk. So we're going to see a lot of new characters, but I think we'll also see like we're going to need a collaboration for this because we're heading into the multiverse too, right? So they might bring back Junior and Evans because it'd be a different universe
Right. Where
version
maybe he
of
didn't
that
die,
person.
kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because like we saw in multiverse where you see Strange see a universe where he is dead, right?
Yeah. Right.
Uh, in
And then
spectacular fashion.
yeah, exactly. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's supposed to be a third Venom movie, right? Sony's putting together a third Venom movie. I think they're in the works
I
right now.
have heard something like that. I just don't know what it'll look like
And
because he defeated Carnage. So
yeah. And then in the end of Spider-Man, like the end credit
post
scenes,
credits.
he left to his own universe again. He popped out, but there was still the symbiote that was left behind. So I
Yeah.
wonder if somehow that'll have a connection to Spider-Man, whoever that Spider-Man may be. I'm assuming that if it's Tom Holland or whoever it is, I'm assuming there will be some sort of connection there because comic book wise, Spider-Man does wear the symbiote suit in Secret Wars. Not to give it away to you, but yeah, he does.
Oh, it's in the comics, so
So yeah, like I mean, I would assume that Disney will probably go Marvel and Disney will probably go that aligned with it. And that's probably why they threw that out there as like a little bit of a teaser. But I do believe there is a third movie in the works. I would just like to see, honestly, like a collaborative work between Spider-Man and Venom that is like good, not
Oh, interesting.
you
Well,
know,
I know they teamed up in the animated series you mentioned. They did team up
yeah,
to fight Carnage, I believe.
yeah,
And also it's funny because in that when they teamed up, it was also against Mordo, who is in Doctor Strange. So there is a history of them teaming up. So it'd be interesting if that did happen. And they've been teasing it, right? I mean, Sony still owns the rights to Spider-Man, right? They
yeah.
collaborate with
With
MCU to
yeah,
let Spider-Man to be in the MCU. But they teased it at the end of Venom 2 that he would be in No Way Home, but they didn't. He wasn't there, and I was kind of bummed about that because I think that would have been super cool to see.
yeah, he wasn't
But
there, which was
yeah,
disappointing, and it was just that little end credit scene, honestly.
yeah,
Though I think one other thing, like if I can critique too, like in No Way Home, there was Green Goblin, there was
mhm.
Doctor Octavius, Doc Ock, there was Shocker or Electro, there was Lizard Man, and
Lizard,
there's one more, Sandman.
Sand guy, yeah.
Sandman. Where's the six? They should have done Sinister Six. They had a perfect opportunity to bring back one
Oh
other
yeah,
person, and they could have done a Sinister Six opportunity there. Like you
well,
could
it
have
would have
even
been Venom
it would have been Venom or better guess
from
Vulture from the original Tom Holland movie.
yeah, but Vulture was but they're in that universe.
Yeah,
They're in Tom Holland's
that's
universe, so
why
Vulture. Well, I guess Vulture could have broken out of prison, but
something like that.
um,
But that would have been Sinister Six right there, and I think that would have been.
hmm,
Oh, they could have. I mean, they only needed one more person, right? It would have been an interesting route whether they went with Vulture or they went with.
yeah, because they couldn't do Mysterio in that universe because he
He
died
died.
in the so that wouldn't work. But or they could have brought Venom back because Venom was in Tobey Maguire's universe.
And funny enough, like
He's-
Venom was there. Like we found out at
Yeah.
the end of the movie, he got brought back too. He just didn't do anything.
hmm
So
No, it was an interesting choice, but I did want to get your perspective on something that sort of caused some debate when the movie first came out, and I think people are softening on it a little bit. But the Wanda Maximoff heel turn, what did you think about that
Oh.
in Doctor Strange?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. A lot of people probably didn't like it. I'm guessing is what you're saying. They didn't like how she went.
I didn't at first, and then when I watched it again, I was like, okay, I'm actually a little bit more okay with this heel turn than I thought it would. And for folks who don't watch wrestling, heel turn means they turned evil. We talk wrestling on the show, as you know, so I just like that term heel turn because it sounds appropriate for what happened. But
Definitely
yeah,
was
I really
appropriate there.
yeah, like she turned serious heel, and I think one of the coolest scenes for me in that movie is when she completely obliterates the Illuminati. Like,
Well, here's the interesting thing about Scarlet Witch that I think is like I think she's so much more powerful than people anticipate. Like she's actually really, really powerful, and she could just wipe out anyone. You kind of saw that in that movie, and it gave a lot of that perspective of how powerful she really is. But I think it was like a necessary character build. I liked it because it was like I go back to WandaVision, and she was like so nice and sweet in WandaVision, and like you just got to see her like vulnerability, and you got to see how she was really sad about like what happened in Vision and her kids and her life, and like it's all kind of like a false reality. And she's just chasing what she like really wanted to have, but she couldn't have it. And then you saw this really like nice side of her. And then we go to that movie, and like in the beginning, when she sees Strange, and I can't remember the forest or whatever, but she's there, and then she's like having the conversation with him. She kind of warned him, like I'll basically make a heel turn if you like cross me, right? And I think it was a good character development because it provided a different side of her to have the whole movie almost where she's like gone crazy and just like her brain's taken over, and she's just
it's the Darkhold, yeah.
in this bad environment, but she fought out of it, and she's able to come out of it better. I think she's gonna come out of it better, right? So I think realistically, like I liked it. I didn't think it was a horrible thing at all. One thing that I found hilarious is I heard something that theory, like a fan theory. You remember at some point in Spider-Man, like they kept trying to do it all along, but Doctor Strange was trying to do the spell so everyone would forget who Spider-Man is. And then by the end of the movie, he ends up saying, yes, just like make everybody forget about me, even if it includes my friends and MJ. And he did it. And everyone doesn't remember who he is. But a fan theory made something interesting in Wanda's ability to make, I can't remember the world or whatever that she can create. Like, with her mind, she can create and take over like an
yeah.
right, like whatever that's called. The mind control.
Chaos magic.
When she's in this, when she has this magic, she's not affected by spells. No one can hurt her with spells, right? Like Doctor Strange's magic couldn't do anything. So in theory, if
she
Doctor Strange, she knows who Spider-Man is. She would know who Spider-Man is. She's the only one who would know who Spider-Man is. So
well, and it's interesting because I remember at the end of No Way Home, he said goodbye to Peter, but then in Doctor Strange he mentioned Spider-Man. I thought that was interesting.
That's a good point because someone, I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was America. What's her? Chavez. She said like, have you ever like had dealt with a multiverse situation before? And I remember him saying like, oh yeah, I dealt with a little bit of a multiverse situation with the Spider-Man, and he knew what she was talking about,
who he was,
yeah. Spider-Man, he knew Peter Parker. So yeah, I don't know. That's a good point.
It'll continue.
Maybe his own spells don't
affect him, but he said goodbye to Peter though. That's why I thought it was strange he said that. Anyways, that's a bit of a continuation error, I think, on Marvel potentially. But so you and I haven't seen Thor.
The new Thor.
I haven't seen it yet. And of course, the next one coming up is Wakanda Forever, and I think I'm quite excited for that because we get to see who was replacing Chadwick Boseman. Boseman, thank you. And they did make reference to it in the trailer that Chad, like I was wondering how they were gonna play it. Like, would like he just be somewhere else? But no, like it looks like in the storyline of the movie that T'Challa is no longer around. So I'm really curious to see it. It does. The rumors are it's going to be his sister,
Yeah,
Shuri. Is that her name?
I think so.
Can't remember. I may be wrong on that. That she will take over, which would kind of make sense, because I know they, in the first Black Panther, T'Challa's cousin destroyed the place where they got the power of the Black Panther.
Yeah.
So they may have like a reserve that she can use to become the next, and she's the next in line for the royalty anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would make sense for her. So yeah, I'm very excited to see that, and also to see, as usual, how it's going to fold into the larger storyline. But what I'm really fascinated about though is the and I wanted to dive into was the announcement of the two Avenger movies that's going to be at the end of Phase 6, which is in May of 2025. You're going to have Kang Dynasty, and then in November that same year, you're going to have Secret Wars. So now that you've seen a bit more of Phase 4, like what are your thoughts about the trajectory that Marvel is heading into, which is the multiverse?
Yeah, no, I think this whole multiverse situation is very cool. I thought Doctor Strange, the first movie, was just such a good storyline depiction of a character that not everyone's so familiar with. And we really saw him develop again in Multiverse of Madness and in Spider-Man and all the scenes he's been in. He's gonna be going into this phase a little bit, right? And he'll be in a few I think other movies here, as we see the cameo from Wong every time. I think he's been in like the last 5 movies. But yeah, no, I think the multiverse whole situation, like they have a lot of routes that they can go for this, and they can make it really interesting. And to your point, like the new Black Panther movie coming out, Wakanda Forever, like they've done such a good job of like just using their opportunities and using their creativeness as a team to like create kind of new stories and things. I see no sweat. Like they'll be able to make this work and make sense of it. I'm really excited for Secret Wars because it was a great comic book. I'm very excited for the Kang Dynasty because I really liked Loki. I really like what I saw at the end of Loki, and yeah, I mean, like for anyone who hasn't seen Loki, we won't give too much away at the end, but
Just go for it. Like it's been a long time.
Enough.
Yeah,
like honestly, like throughout the whole scene where they're like what do they call him? The one the
Oh, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen it.
All or something like that. Something like that.
Yeah.
But I knew the whole long time. I'm like, that guy's Kang. Like, it's too obvious that guy's Kang. And, like, I think they went 2 whole episodes with him in the end. And I was like, yeah, like, you have to know that he's Kang. But, like, this whole... I'm really happy they're bringing back a second season of Loki because we often don't see... We often don't see Disney do these Marvel series more than 1 season. So far, anyways. So, Loki... I really like Loki as a character. I think he's a really cool character. So I'm really excited to see a continuation of him. But honestly, this whole Kang Dynasty thing, like Kang is like a whole nother level further than like what they dealt with Thanos. So like honestly, like he's so powerful.
I imagine can he jump universes then?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes. So I think because. I think there's something along the lines of how in the show he was talking about how like I had to fight off all the other Kangs in the other universes because and then he was saying like if I break open this universe and this happens, you kill me, all those army of Kangs are gonna come together, right? So I think like there is a power where I don't know how they'll do this, but he is able to like almost be one and be separated, right? So he can take the power from everyone together to become, and I think he was the one that they killed was the only like sane Kang. He was the only one who wanted to keep everything kind of like in a threshold, but it's gonna be madness from this point on. We'll see a
Yeah.
lot of crazy things probably happen with like multiversal changes, but also like a lot of new characters will get involved. And I think that's the cool thing. We're starting to see some of those characters come about and some development on those new characters, but we're going to
Hmm.
continue to see some more. I kind of think of like back to, I think there was a comic book series about this where it was like the New Avengers. It was called the New Avengers, and I think that's kind of what
Hmm.
they're going for, right?
Or the young, there's a young
There's Young
Avengers, and I think that's
Adventures as well.
what we're seeing, because I think in there you've got America Chavez, Ironheart, Kate Bishop, and I think She-Hulk. Maybe, anyways,
She-Hulk
it's
will be
like
in it, yeah.
the next level. But I think what was really interesting that they introduced in Multiverse of Madness was incursions.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't mentioned that before, and I think that's going to be something to keep note of moving forward. Why I'm really excited about where I'm at as a Marvel fan, because I wasn't really involved in the first three phases. I didn't watch
So
the
you binged everything backward to where you
yeah.
are now. Okay.
I did. So I started watching in 2020. So I just kind of I just binged everything, and then I got hooked from there. So
I
I
started
started from the
watching in 2008, the
oh,
first
good for
Iron
you.
Man and
Yeah,
everything, and then I fell
yeah,
off a little bit, probably around like 20, maybe like 2018 or 2019. Probably I fell
yeah.
off a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I think that it's interesting, as I think a lot of the sense I'm getting is a lot of Marvel fans like are just a little bit like emotionally exhausted from Endgame, because it was what 2008 to whenever Endgame was, like that's how long they had till the end of all those
Probably
superhero,
a
right?
decade. I want to say it was like
Yeah.
2008 up until like 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like there's just like all this build up for the Infinity Saga, right? And then poof, like it's done. Thanos is gone. Uh, Iron Man's gone. Captain America is gone as well. He decided to live his life in the from the past, right? So you could tell from Endgame like that Marvel was gonna have to move into a new direction, and I'm like exhausted in anticipation, because I'm up to date, so I'm following everything as it develops, right? Like I'm watching every single series. I keep forgetting about Moon Knight. Moon Knight's involved in this somehow too, right? Which is really exciting. That was one of the, I think, out of this phase so far. I know you haven't seen all of them, but for me, like Moon Knight was, I think for like a show, Moon Knight was the best. Like I think it was just so cool. It had all really cool elements to it. Acting was incredible on everyone's part. Casting was fantastic. And then for me, like WandaVision was the best, like emotional out of all of them, because
Hmm.
of, like I said, it was also the first one too.
It was very
But
dramatic, right?
it was, and it again. It goes back to what we talked about when we did talk about Marvel last time. Was like this phase up until, actually, no, it's still kind of staying consistent sort of with the cost of being a superhero, right? Because
Yeah.
even in Multiverse of Madness, you see Strange didn't get Christine, right? Because he decided to, you know, save the universe against Thanos, right?
It rolls all the way back to Tobey Maguire having to give up Mary Jane because like
Yeah.
just the cost of being a superhero. You can't have those you
Hmm.
love involved and things like that. So that storyline stayed very consistent throughout, and it still has, which I like.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing about, so they were saying about Ms. Marvel, was that they were sort of bucking it a little bit, because, of course, you know, Kamala does have to do stuff. She had to, fight these folks from a different club, like, not, and I wouldn't say universe. Like, I don't know where those folks are from, and of course, damage control. She had to fight them
Yeah.
too, but like she did it with her family, and that's kind of the first time we sort of see that. Because even like Kate Bishop in Hawkeye was close with her mom, but then she ended up being a bad guy,
Hmm.
so not great. She took out Kingpin. I don't know if you haven't seen Hawkeye
No,
yet,
no,
but she
I'm
took
gonna
out
watch that next.
Kingpin by herself, and I just spoiled it for you. Sorry.
That's okay.
But anyway, so like I think for me, like it's exciting to see it from the beginning, because this is what I see. I see them building up to these two grandiose movies of Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, just because you've seen in just the first section of this phase just how powerful the multiverse is, because you haven't seen What If, have you? The
No,
other
no,
series. What If was a fantastic
I want
series,
to watch that one
because
too.
it showed some cool alternate realities, but it really showed again the power of the multiverse, and just like if given to the wrong hands, can really cause a lot of problems, hence Kang, right? Um, so I think again, I think they're going to build up what because 2025, so that's what we're in 2022, so 3 more years they're going to build up this huge storyline, right? And then I think have some probably pretty fantastic Avengers movies, right? And I'm happy they called it Avengers because I was
Me too.
wondering if they were gonna give it a different name because they did Endgame and stuff. And I'm glad they're also giving it that much time because I think if you had another Avengers movies too close to Endgame, fans would just be like, well, it's not Endgame, so we can't really get into it. So they're giving it a nice 3 year stretch to like really get to know some of the characters, see the storylines. I think it's gonna take us some time to really understand the expansiveness of the multiverse, right? Because it's just, I think it's hard sometimes to fathom that just like how endless it is. Like literally, it doesn't stop, right? It's just constantly, there's always another universe, right? And you kind of saw it with America Chavez
Hmm.
and how they travel through the different the universes where they were paint at one point.
They were paint at one point. That was really cool.
Yeah. It was some good CGI work there. So I'm really excited moving forward to see how they're going to do it and what themes they're going to pull out moving forward. Because I think Phase 4 we're seeing like the the effects of Phase 3 of Endgame. So like
Yeah,
Mona Maximoff, Hawkeye. So I don't know what's Hawkeye's character's name. I can't remember.
I can't
Um,
remember.
Captain America and so Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's another fallout from Endgame, right? So we see like I think the first few series were like the aftermath of Endgame, and now we're starting to see what the future looks like with Kamala Khan, America Chavez, right? So we're starting to see the okay. Now we're moving into the next phase because there's also one they've announced. Thunderbolts is another one they've announced,
Yeah,
which is a bunch of like, I guess it's like their Suicide Squad, but they don't
kind
call
of.
it that. So that's kind of exciting because we haven't seen Captain America yet, but there's a bad Captain America that's
You're
in
talking about the Winter Soldier and Falcon, that show.
yeah,
Yeah,
John Walker is the character's name.
yeah,
So he'll be part of that. I think yeah, Yelena, I can't pronounce her last name. She's the sister of Black Widow.
yeah.
She'll be in that. So like, it's just I'm really excited to like to know what kind of the future looks like. I'm really happy they actually gave us that blueprint, and to really excited to and anxious to be going along with it this time.
Well, for me, it's huge because like I grew up reading the comic books. I grew up watching the
Hmm.
animated series and some of the animated movies. And it's funny because like DC and Marvel are the two like main comic books
Hmm.
out there, comic book companies out there, and Marvel does such a good job cinematically, whereas DC
Hmm.
really fails cinematically. They have had a lot of failures. They haven't done so well unless it's kind of like a couple of projects like when they did the Dark Knight that was successful, but for the most part they
Hmm.
haven't had a lot of success in the cinematic world. But by far DC stands out in their animated series versus Marvel's animated series, and
Interesting.
that's something
Okay.
that's where I find out really interesting. But I've been paying attention for a long time, paid attention to Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, etc., and now I'm kind of getting up to speed almost. And I don't know if you had the opportunity a few years back, let's say probably like 20 around 2012, 2013 to probably like 2016 or 17, where they were
Hmm.
releasing all these Netflix series. This was before like Disney Plus was around. This was before Disney
Oh
got
yeah,
involved. So we
like
had like
Daredevil,
Daredevil, we had Luke Cage, I can't remember the other one.
Defenders.
Defenders was another one, and there was another one. I can't remember the
Was
girl's
Jessica
name.
Jones.
Jessica Jones, yeah, and they were all really
Yeah.
good. They were all really fantastic, honestly,
Mm.
and that started to give you a different taste of what Marvel could do, because I
Hmm.
saw like back at what Marvel used to be. It was like basically just Tobey Maguire and then a couple Iron Mans, and they really have come a long way from that point. Now they've done. They started getting involved with Disney, but before Disney was Netflix and doing those series. And like what I love seeing is they're starting to redeem themselves in ways. Like the Daredevil show was great. He did a fantastic job, and he made Ben Affleck's movie look really, really bad, right? Um, Honestly, we look back at like the Daredevil movie with Ben Affleck. That's another depiction of like what Marvel used to be, right? They weren't that
Hmm.
fantastic
Oh,
on the cinematic
they
front.
didn't have a lot of creative control too,
They
where they
didn't.
do now.
They
Yeah.
didn't, certainly, and that was something they ran into. But then we started to see that, and Disney's been so collaborative with other studios that we see Sony work with them really well, and that's a first because Sony doesn't usually like to work well with people.
No.
But we saw Netflix work with them too, because the Daredevil that was in the series was actually in the movie, and now he's involved, and I believe he has a movie coming out too. They announced he's got an actual standalone movie coming out, and it will be the same character that played in the Netflix series. So they do collaborate really well with other studios, and I think that's fantastic. Honestly, I hope they do more of that. We likely will never see another Marvel Netflix series, I'm guessing. I think it'll all be more so on the Disney side, but yeah, no, I think that we've got a couple of different ones. Like you mentioned the Avengers, but we also have the Daredevil movie coming out. We also have Madam Web coming out, and Madam Web is a huge piece of like that, going back to the cartoon, like the 1994 cartoon she was big in, and I think even there was a bit of her in the 1967 cartoon, like the original. In TV color, like original Spider-Man.
Where all the memes are from.
Where all the memes are from with the Spider-Man point. Yeah.
Pointing.
Yeah. So and I love that series too. Like I watched that series probably several times.
Oh, that song is so iconic. Spider-Man.
Right?
Spider-Man.
Right? So iconic. And I just see that they're doing such a good job of like revamping movies and really getting a chance to redeem themselves. I really want to see another X-Men done, and I think like X-Men, I love X-Men too.
They've announced a new series coming out I think next year, X-Men 97,
right?
I think 96,
right. And it was cool to see Xavier in Multiverse Madness.
Well,
right?
and then they announced in Ms. Marvel that she has mutant genes.
She has mutant genes, so we're gonna see some tie to things like that. But Fox has control over X-Men, and they have for a really long time, just like Sony has had control over
Fox
Spider-Man.
Is owned by Disney now, though.
But Fox is owned by Disney now. That's what I was going to say. So now they have a little bit more control. But that's what we ran into for a long time. It was they were good. Like they weren't bad movies, but they weren't great. They didn't stand out like they do now, right? And I'm really excited to see some of those kind of redemptions. And I know we were announced that there's going to be yet another Fantastic Four movie. And
they're rebranding it.
This is the second time I think they've rebranded it.
Yes.
Third time they've rebranded it actually. Because then
they did the one
with Chris Evans.
Yeah, and then they had it again, and then I think that's it.
And that was garbage. Okay, so it'd be the second time they rebrand, but third time they've done it.
It's the same thing with Spider-Man, right?
Same thing
that
with
was
Spider-Man.
The third version. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just a different thing because it's not that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man was bad. They just redid it as like Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. But anyways, I have a feeling, and they may go another route with Spider-Man and do like the Spectacular Spider-Man. If you have a chance, Google it. Spectacular Spider-Man. It's a good one. There's also. It might be called The Ultimate Spider-Man. I remember reading a comic book that was a couple years ago where they had a whole storyline where like Doc Ock and Spider-Man swapped brains, like they got into and then it's really interesting. I'll have to send it to you, but I have the comic books if you ever want to read them, and I think they could go that storyline too.
And they have announced a new animated series for Spider-Man too.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's what they're focusing on when it comes to Spider-Man, and I really see him kind of fitting in later in when they do more collaborative.
I mean, so too.
As they get more deep into the multiverse, they're going to have to bring in more characters just because it's going to get more and more complicated. That's why I think actually Wanda Maximoff, if you saw the ending when she collapsed the building she was in, you see a spark of red at the very end.
Yes.
I don't think she's gone. And
I don't think she's gone by any means. No.
And they're going to need her to fight Kang because I don't think they're going to need all hands on deck against him.
Like I mentioned before, like I think she's way more powerful than people really anticipated there. So we're going to definitely see her as like a necessity piece to really like fight off.
They're going to need him. They're going to need her for sure. Yeah, well, I think that we think we touched enough Marvel. Because we don't want to. Last episode we said we were going to touch Marvel, then we didn't. So I want to make sure that when we say we're going to talk video games, we actually are going to talk video games.
Yeah.
But I did want to touch on speaking of video games. You have a Pokemon on your shirt.
I do. I have Pikachu on my
Pikachu.
shirt.
I have now have been able to play Pokemon Arceus, and I'm sad I picked it up because now I can't put it down. It is such a refreshing Pokemon game. It is so different than what we're used to. And I love everything about it. I love how you catch Pokemon. I was not sure how I would like the fact that there's no gyms, and there's no badges and there's no like battling. I mean, there is battling, but not as much. But I honestly like I'm enjoying it so much, and I'm really happy to see that they were brave enough to try a different direction, right? Because I'm sure they were a little bit scared to do something that different from what we were all used to for Pokemon. And B, it sounds like Scarlet and Violet are going to be actually quite similar
Yep.
to Arceus. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it. How are you? How did you enjoy? You've played Arceus,
Yes,
so
yes. I haven't beat it or anything, but I've played a few, put some hours into it, and like just like you, I'm a big Pokemon fan. I love everything Pokemon, and this is the thing about the whole brand and everything behind Pokemon. The Pokemon Company, Game Freak, is the one who develops the Pokemon games. They know whatever they put on the table, somebody's gonna buy it. Lots
Yeah,
of people are gonna
exactly.
buy it. That's why they went on from like what I think the first games came out in like '96 or '97. We had Pokemon Blue, Pokemon Red, then we had Pokemon Yellow, right? And based on that point up until like all the depictions we went through, black, white, pearl, uh, silver, crystal, like there were so
Gold.
many different
Yeah.
ones that came out. um they're all very similar, right? Even up until like 3DS, they were all very similar, and then we hit this point where we hit, I believe it was Pokemon Sword and Shield, where we hit in Switch, where they were slightly different. The graphics were a little bit better. The world was a little bit more open,
It
sort
was the
of.
first open world one because I know they had Pokemon Pikachu and Eevee.
Pikachu and Eevee, yeah, yeah.
It was still same. That wasn't open world, and
No,
then Sword was like I think the first Sword and Shield was
Sword
the
and
first
Shield
one
were
where
the
you
first one.
because what do you call that? Is it the wild area? Is that what they call
Yeah,
it? That
yeah.
like that was the first time we saw something like
It
that.
was something like that, and it gave a different perspective, but it was still too similar. Like it was a bit of a miss because it was still a little too similar to what they had with the other ones. And then we have the rebranded Pearl and Diamond, which I
Brilliant
loved,
Diamond.
and we played together as well when they came out last year, and and they were great. It was great to see like a kind of like rebranded, better graphics, kind of just brought back the nostalgia.
On the Grand Underground was super cool too.
The Grand Underground was a good piece to be added to that. But it was nice to see, and I really anticipated Arceus for a while, because it was the first open world different feel of a game. And I think the difference between Arceus is like it's very historical, like it's explaining like a lot of the history and the background of the game, which
Yeah.
it gives you a totally different feel because they never done this. You just kind of get into the game, and you're a Pokemon trainer, yada yada yada. You don't really know a lot about the backstory and the history, so there's a lot of good in that aspect. But I just love how you got the ball. You actually get the chance to throw the ball at different speeds and things like that, and you can actually catch Pokemon rather than you go through the one-on-one
The battle.
window battles and things like that. So definitely way different experience. But they did announce that Violet and Scarlet that are coming out, I think in November this year, are going to be the same gameplay model as Arceus was. So you will have the similar like throwing, but the difference between those, it'll be less history. It'll be more of a new storyline, new Pokemon, um, new worlds, new badges, gyms, etc. But you will have the whole battling, gyms, badges, everything will be involved. So it'll almost be like Arceus on steroids. It'll just be like it'll just be like a whole new storyline. And I don't know if you saw the 3 starters in that game, but oh bless your heart, they're so cute.
At least yeah, it's funny they kind of get like a little bit uglier as not uglier but like less cute of course as they level up. But
Well, the Indigo
yeah.
series, which is the original series, they were definitely the 3 cutest like Pokemon, like Charmander, Bulbasaur, and
Bulbasaur.
Squirtle were the cutest, and then Throll and Pikachu, and they're all like the cutest Pokemon. But then you're right, they kind of went on an interesting look for a while. But yeah, if you have a chance, look at the 3 new starters. They're super cute. I like them.
Yeah, what do you typically start with?
I'm usually a water,
I usually
water
go
trainer. Yeah,
I usually go fire because you typically can't find a lot of fire
you
Pokemon until
can't.
like halfway through the game usually.
I think when we played against each other, like I had Empoleon and Piplup and all that, and I
Hmm.
think you started with the I can't remember his name.
Inferno.
Inferno. Yeah. So that's the thing that I love about Pokemon is too is you kind of get to go your own path, and if you have a good experience working with like water Pokemon or
Mm,
fire Pokemon, etc., like you do kind of stick to that route. You typically do through most of the
yeah.
games, and I don't know how many Pokemon games I have, a lot, and like I've played through all of them where I've always kind of stuck with water. I've done a couple others where I've branched off and tried some other Pokemon, but usually
Hmm.
starting point I always start with water, and I think a lot of people are like that. They just like what they like, and I love how Pokemon allows you to kind of even with a different character, you're still sticking with the type of Pokemon that you train well.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. I don't know when they shifted to this. I hadn't I stopped playing quite a long time ago, and then I picked it up um, quite recently when Switch came out and newer games came out. But when now they have multiple types, so like fire, like so for example, the fire Pokemon in Arceus when you get him to his final stage, um, uh, it's fire ghost.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really interesting. So, and like now for me, like I'm all about like building my team and
Hmm.
building a team that can like whatever Pokemon comes out, I can have the counter for
Yeah.
it. So that's what I really love about Pokemon is it's like a chess game for me. So it's like how do I build a team that's prepared for any kind of Pokemon that's going to come my way, right? And
It's
that's why I
very
really
strategy based.
well, and that's why I really enjoyed in the newer series that whatever you do, if you catch a Pokemon or you're in battle, your entire party gets experience.
Yeah.
Versus the older style where it was like you have to get each one to battle, which I understood. Like I understood from back then, right? That makes sense. But for me, it's just like that's like way more game hours you have to spend.
How
Uh,
many hours you really put into the game? Like hundreds
yeah,
of hours. Yeah.
yeah, right. So like, I like how they cut that down, and like your whole party gets experience. Of course, the Pokemon battling gets more experience, which makes sense. But at least like everyone's kind of staying in the same level. Because like when the old games, it was like you've got like a level 50 Pokemon, then the next one's 30. Because you just haven't had a time to
Yeah.
go and battle all those Pokemon to get the experience up, right? So
Yeah.
I really have I've really enjoyed the new, and I'm very excited for this next phase of Pokemon because it's looking like it's going to be a really fun and different style than we're used to.
Yeah. No, me too. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think like I've played the card game, I've played the video games, and you're right. Like it's such a strategic game, regardless of. Some people call it like a baby game or like a kids game, but
Hmm.
honestly, like there's so probably in our like generation, I think we probably play it more than like anyone. We're more interested.
Yeah.
The kids these days, all they want to play is Fortnite and I think
Hmm.
Roblox or whatever.
You
But
sound so old.
I know I sound so old,
The
but
kids these
kids
days.
these days. But yeah, like I mean, Pokemon has a special place in my heart for sure. But
Hmm.
speaking of like video games in general, and I don't know if it's something you'd probably be interested in, but like over the last few years, I'd say, Marvel and DC have kind of always had like a little bit of like play in the industry, and they've had some
Hmm.
games that have come out. And Spider-Man's done quite a few different games, but like
Hmm.
over the last few years, I think in 2018, Sony, PlayStation and Sony worked together to create an exclusive game for PlayStation, and they just released it on PC last week, actually, for the first time.
Spider-Man,
So it's
right?
4 years later. Yeah, Spider Man.
Oh, that's awesome.
The 2018 Spider Man was so good. Like I played through it and I finished. I 100% completed the game, and like I loved it so much. Like I've played it multiple times, and then they released Miles Morales, which was his whole story, and that was a fantastic game. Again, completed that game 100% through and played it again. Um, but now they're releasing. They announced the next Spider-Man, so Spider-Man 2, and
Hmm.
it's going to be the two of them mixed together, their whole world
Oh, okay.
together. They're going to work together, and you're going to be able to swap between characters. So you'll be able to use Peter Parker sometimes, you'll be able to use Miles Morales sometimes, and they're going to be
Hmm.
facing off against their main villain, which is going to be Venom. So you're going to see Venom for the first time in the how would we say this? So there's the MCU. This is what the VC. I don't know, the video game cinematic universe. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they've done such a fantastic job. I'm really excited for it. I think it's in 2023 is when the Spider-Man 2 comes out.
Hopefully it's not like Harry Potter and it keeps getting pushed back.
I hope not. I hope not. But well worth it if it's anything like the first game and develops on the first game. Like, it'll be well worth the pushback if they have to. I've noticed, like, one thing I'll say about like the video game industry over the last few years, like if they do release something on time and it's not done yet, there's a lot of backlash from like fans. So I'd rather see something come out that's fully developed, and even if it takes extra time. But not only that, Marvel has just announced that they're going to be releasing a Wolverine game, and we've never seen a Wolverine game either. So definitely they're kind of dabbling into like the video game world and doing such a good job on that. But it's almost its own universe. Like, it's all very developed in sense of its own storyline that's very different from what we see in the MCU, what we see in the comic books and the animated series. So it's just, I mean, Marvel's doing wonders in terms of every industry at this point. And I think you slap Spider-Man on anything or Marvel characters on anything at this point and people will buy it. Like, I mean, I think I have a notebook near me that has Iron Man on it. So there you go.
Well, and I think one thing I really wanted to chat with you about when it came to video games, I think what you've brought up to me and what I think is interesting is like what do video games look like in the future? We have, VR is obviously going to be one avenue that we see, but what I find is really interesting is you mentioned to me that Netflix is starting a video game stream or whatever you want to call it. They're getting into video games, and also I think it was yesterday or the day, but sometime at some point this week, Disney and Marvel announced that they're also going to be doing games on their streaming services. So I'm really curious because obviously you're really into video gaming. Like, where do you think, like, how do you think that's going to look, and like, what do you think about the fact that these streaming services that are really for TV shows and movies are now moving into video games?
That's a good question. I think the way that we looked at games in general, let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, we had mostly console games and some PC. We dabbled in some PC games, mostly console games, and you'd pick up a controller and you'd play. You'd only be able to play it if you had a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Nintendo console at the time. And now, even with those consoles, I think I wouldn't say that the console industry is by any means dead or anything, but it's moving in a different direction. And we see that with not only just handheld, like the Switch, but the Steam Deck that just came out last year, which is basically just a mini PC in your pocket, which is kind of cool. But honestly, we have a lot of direction where they're moving into more of a subscription-based service. We see that with like Xbox Game Pass. We see that with like Nintendo Switch Online. We see that now with PlayStation Plus, and they have competition, right? They gotta compete against one another. And Nintendo, they're on their own. Like, they know regardless of what they do, people are gonna buy their IPs, right? IPs being their projects, right? And like, they exclusives. People tend to buy console based off exclusives, and that's kind of why we have consoles. But now this subscription service is moving in different directions. We have Game Pass, we have a new revamped PlayStation Plus, which is kind of taking after that kind of lead with Xbox Game Pass. But you're being able to play Xbox Game Pass on your PC. You're being able to play cloud gaming on your phone, your Android phones. You're able to take those play through Steam. You're able to play. I hear that Samsung is releasing new TVs that you can just have the Xbox Game Pass in the TV, like the smart TV.
Oh, I don't even need the console anymore?
So all you need to buy is a controller. So you just the console's basically in the TV because everything's cloud gaming, and I think this is the direction they're going in. We started to see it with movies and TV, right? Netflix was kind of that first one who started. Now, who buys DVDs anymore? Who buys,
I can't even get a DVD anymore.
Okay, sorry. Who buys Blu-rays anymore and 4K? Not many people, right? So that was kind of the direction that kind of started it, and then now we see video games kind of moving in that direction, and now I start seeing like that is the way things will probably continue to roll forward, we're going to see more of a subscription-based model for gaming. We won't see as many digital purchases or physical purchases, but we'll see a lot of like, okay, you have a subscription, you have this many games that you can play. And that's why I think Netflix started to dabble into that, because we have mobile gaming too. Mobile gaming is a really, really big industry that a lot of people kind of just brush to the corner, but there's a lot of like people who play mobile games that are very big. Apple Arcade is huge. Google Stadia is huge. Steam's always been a big game platform. And now we're moving into Netflix doing gaming and going on the apps and playing the games and downloading them. And I think Disney, you know, they're competition to Netflix, and they need to do something, right? And they need to get into this industry. And how much better are they going to be if they're going to be able to afford games to you within your subscription platform? You're going to be able to play. I think they said they're collaborating with Disney and Marvel. So they're going to have probably some Disney themed games and some Marvel themed games, and they're not free games. They're still making a platform, a profit off of it through the platform, but you're going to have, you know, a whole family, like, plethora of opportunity to watch shows, watch movies, watch series, watch all those, and then also play video games. Like, you're going to be able to do those, and what a great, like, family oriented program that you can do. So I think just them seeing, I guess, over the last few years with the gaming industry, like, we've seen a huge shift towards digital, but we've also seen a huge shift towards this subscription model, probably because a lot more people are starting to work from home. A lot more people starting to look for other avenues to find some fun. And it's sparked a lot of like those older generations, so like our generation and older, of like, let's get back into video games because, you know, we've had so much time at home. It's a good way for us to connect, and people are starting to see. So the industry in altogether is really booming. So, you know, Disney being a big company, they want to part of that. They want a share of that. So they're going to start to go into the market share and try to take some of those subscriptions away from Netflix and PlayStation and
Amazon,
Xbox, Amazon's huge too with gaming because they have Prime Gaming. When you subscribe to Prime, they have a Prime Gaming, so you get to play free games, but you also get like a bunch of like downloadable content being a Prime member that you can bring into your game. So it's they're all kind of competing against one another, but it makes sense to me that Disney is jumping into this subscription model.
Interesting too. I just saw a report today too, outside of gaming, that Netflix might. I don't know when the broadcasting rights come up for WWE, but apparently, and Netflix is interested in buying WWE's television rights. Yeah, I don't know when they end with USA and.
So they're with USA, Fox, and Peacock, right? Peacock is like their streaming service right now, which I think is NBC, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess once that's over, they would have some sort of like, you'd be able to watch it through Netflix. Like, you'd be able to watch.
I'm assuming so.
So that would be kind of cool.
It sparks my thinking, because it just really does seem that like if the video games world is heading into subscription based, where you see Netflix and like maybe everything else is just really going to be subscription based. And I mean, we're already seeing that, right? Like, there's Paramount Plus, there's Disney Plus, Netflix, Crave, like there's all, like, it's really just heading into subscription based world now, where I don't even think we'll ever. I mean, we're probably watching our hockey on.
Everything will be digital, and
well, it's
even books are getting in this direction, like with what's it called,
books
like,
and
Amazon Audible, and I hear even like in the U.S. like higher education textbooks, like Pearson and things like that, they're moving into the direction of going more subscription based. Interesting. For their students. I think I heard something about like Disney, the previous CEO or someone who worked in Disney now works in that industry, and they're starting like different things like that.
Well, we're also seeing it. Another thing we talk about here is hockey. Is San Jose and I believe LA. They stream their radio, and I think it's subscription too through their radio rights through their website. So you got to buy in to get it. And it sounds like the Canucks might actually Vancouver Canucks might be heading in that direction too.
How do you feel about that whole model? Like, I know you're big on Disney Plus, and I think you have Netflix access and everything as well.
I do.
So honestly, like, how do you feel about that whole model of subscription services, being able to, you don't really have any physical copies of anything anymore. You know, the one thing that does suck about it is when these things are taken off, like video games or anything, they take them out, you're not able to play them anymore. You only have rights up until that person doesn't have permissions rights anymore to it, right? So
yeah, I think it makes sense in a straight, like for me, I enjoy it. Like it's nice to like have Disney Plus and show my kids the movies I used to watch when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and don't have to like fumble and find old VCRs.
VHS tapes, yeah.
But I think it's just everything's getting streamlined, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see how things move forward. But I find it really fascinating that it's even getting into the video game industry,
Yeah.
right? And where that's interesting where it's heading to, right? Like, well, like you said, Nintendo Switch has a subscription thing. So are you at some point are we not going to be able to buy the video games anymore? It's just, nope,
That's
you get a
what I
Nintendo
wonder.
Switch account, you can automatically get Pokemon. But I guess they do make the money off of the, which looks like a
Nintendo
chip.
definitely makes a lot of money off of like physical copies, where I feel like Xbox seems to be going a really interesting route where any of their exclusive games, like their Gears of War or Halo or whatever like that, they're all released day one. So as soon as it's released physically at a retail store, it's released on Xbox Game Pass. So if you pay for that subscription service, you just get access to the game immediately, which is like, why would I go out and buy a $90 or $80 game if it's going to come out day one? But then for those people who like physical discs, like, they know that eventually there's not going to be that digital access to it, and then if they didn't pay for it, they're not going to have it. So some people do like physical copies, but I think Nintendo, they wouldn't make enough money, I feel, off of subscription services. They gave all their IPs away, because they have a lot of, like, think of all the Mario games, all the Zelda games and Pokemon games, and all these games that are so synonymous with Nintendo. You know, imagine they were all free day one, and all you had to pay was like $100 a year. Like, no, it's a no-brainer, right? You're gonna be paying $70 or $80 a game, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, we'll probably stop there because we could probably
could
go
talk
on
about this all night.
just all night, all day, and the next day on top of that. So thanks everyone for listening to a bit of a different episode of the Spectators Podcast. We talked about spectating video games and spectating movies. So that's like a bit of exciting to talk about something different. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on our audio channels, which is Spotify and Apple, and also leave a comment on YouTube, and then leave a review of the Star Written Variety on our audio channels. But as I always say, my beautifully bearded friend, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one.